This week on London Real, we have astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson.
I wake up every morning astonished that an astrophysicist can have 1.7 million Twitter followers. The cosmos is anything where it's a frontier of human knowledge of how the world works. There's so many forces that want to deny a scientific truth just because it conflicts with their ideology. I thought of myself, because I could wrestle, as sort of a defender of geeks. There is no teacher in any time in my life, from kindergarten through 12th grade and beyond, who ever would have said, he'll go far. And the act of finding out is the lesson, not the lesson itself.
On Sunday, London Real presents Neil deGrasse Tyson, Cosmos.
I'm happy to report that there's an appetite for the cosmos out there.
Welcome back to London Real. I am here at the Royal Observatory in Greenwich in honor of this week's guest. If you haven't been up here, it's an amazing place, and it has unique views of the city of London. You can see behind me here the O2 Arena, of course, Canary Wharf, where all the bank buildings are, and then you can see the city of London. London Real Studios are over there somewhere. You can see the Thames, and it's really amazing up here. It's also the home of Greenwich Mean Time, which is right behind me. You can walk and have 1 foot on one side of the hemisphere and 1 foot on the other side. And it's really a fantastic place. There's tons of history, including this housing up there where there's a Victorian telescope that's 28 inches wide and 28 feet long. And this was the place back in the day, you know, where discoveries were being made and planets were being tracked. And it's a really exciting place to kind of come up and check out. So if you do come to London, definitely make your way up here. And the Greenwich Park behind me, it's stunning. If you haven't guessed already, this week's guest is a very special dude. His name is Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. He is an astrophysicist and so much more. He has a way of transcending his scientific choice of career into becoming something available to almost everyone in the world. And I just don't know exactly what it is. Maybe it's his charisma or his passion. But he has a way of bringing everyone together and getting them excited about science. And he's got a new television show coming out called Cosmos, which is a reboot of the original Cosmos, which was by a guy named Carl Sagan, who back in the 80s also transcended everything. And I remember my mom in San Diego walking around the house, and I told Neil this during the interview, saying, billions and billions and billions of stars. And she would kind of get up in my face about it. And she was obviously inspired by everything that Carl did. And Neil will talk about when he first met Carl at the campus of Cornell University, a place that I also visited in 1989 to consider it as a possible school for me. But along with Neil, I passed on that school and went somewhere else. Funny enough, we both found ourselves sooner or later in Boston. And it's just a kind of a crazy turn of events that now Neil is kind of following in the footsteps of a guy that he met when he was 17 or 18 years of age. So it was a fantastic sit down with Neil, really special for us. We did it off-site, so you can see kind of the plush interior of the Soho Hotel in London. It's good to kind of get me out of the studio, and it was unfortunately necessary for someone of a caliber of Neil. We couldn't get him down to the studio. He was doing press all day, so it was really lucky we got some time with him. And I think this is a really unique interview. I've watched a lot of them about him, but he really talks about him growing up at the Bronx School of Science, which is quite a well-known institution, and living in New York City, and how he was intrigued with science, and how Twitter was built for him, how he always thinks in 140 character thoughts, and how his tweets are his own. and they are really not answers to anyone else, but really just him condensing his thoughts. He also talks about wrestling in high school, which I did as well, and he even put me in a mean headlock at the end of the interview, which you probably saw pictures of. And finally, I hit him with the London Real question as far as advice to his 20-year-old self, and he really had a passionate discussion about how he thinks that children need to make their own mistakes and to live their own lives, and especially when it comes to immigrant parents, he was saying that a lot of times they want to protect their children and give them their money when in fact they need to go through the same struggle that they went through. And I thought it was a really interesting observation and something I didn't expect from Mr. Tyson. So I think you're going to really enjoy it. So please let me know your thoughts on this and tweet at me what you think. Hopefully we'll be doing more of these off-site. As you probably know, we are sponsored by the good folks at Bulletproof. And not only do they make a very mean coffee that I drink every morning, which is free of molds and toxins, and then combined with grass-fed butter and their MCT oil, which is a brain octane oil that has kind of 18 times the nutrients of a coconut oil. But they also do other things. You know, some call them a biohacking company, but it's much more than that. And we're going to have a few videos coming out, giving you a few little teasers now about sleep hacking. And they have just some fantastic general advice when it comes to your sleep. And you know, we had Mike Dolce on last week, and he, of all people, a man that specializes in nutrition and fitness, says that sleep is probably the most important thing you can do. And I really shoot for my 8, maybe 9 hours a night. And it's also the sleep quality that's very important for you. So everyone in my household, including the 9-year-old, has been tracking our sleep every night on our iPhone apps. It's the Sleep Cycle app. Actually doesn't have anything to do with Bulletproof. You can just get it for free. And I highly recommend that you start tracking your sleep, and stay tuned for some of these videos where we're going to be going through basic stuff of sleep hacking, and then a few extra things you can do, and even a few products like the sleep induction mat, which I lay on now every night before I go to bed. It's got kind of spikes on the back of it, and it gets your back and your mind all relaxed before you go to sleep. So more to come on that. Just wanted to thank the guys at Bulletproof. They make this show happen. They've been big sponsors of us from the start, and we're big fans of theirs. So there you go. And now I'm going to leave you with this tremendous sight of London in all its glory. Like I said, if you're coming to the city, make the trip out here and take a look. A lot of people just see the West End and see Parliament, but there's special places all around here. And that's me out. If you are feeling our show and watching this on YouTube, please click on the subscribe button. It really helps us out a lot. And leave us some comments. Come on Facebook and Twitter and follow us there. I wanted to give a big shout out to Jenny Heaton from Fox International for making this this interview happen with Neil deGrasse Tyson. And you know, it's just great when we are an option along with the BBC and a bunch of other video media. It's great to know that London Real is right up there. So thanks to them, we're going to get you more of those crazy celebrity type guests, and then more real people with real stories, and more from people you've never heard of. So it's a little bit of everything here at London Real. And now I'm going to leave you with the one and only Mr. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Okay, here we go. Yeah. This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Dr. Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you, and good morning here in London. You are an astrophysicist, a cosmologist, an author. You're also the director of the Hayden Planetarium
in New York City.
American Museum of Natural History in New York City. Mm-hmm. You are America's most popular scientist. You were voted the sexiest astrophysicist alive, which might be a backhanded compliment. I can't figure that out.
Yeah, just consider the category.
I was thinking that way.
I don't know who I beat out for that. I don't know. Okay, so yeah, it's like saying, I don't get big-headed about it.
Okay, well, it's a compliment. You know, sexy is something. You will soon be hosting Cosmos, a space.
Well, it's not always a compliment to be objectified.
Oh, okay, yeah. Oh, that's true, actually, yeah. Okay. I guess as men, we're not used to it.
Yeah, as men, it's a weird thing.
We don't have the reaction that a lot of women are like, don't objectify me.
Right. Okay. I'm just saying it's not always, but I didn't mind. That was fine.
That was all right.
Yeah.
You will soon be hosting Cosmos, a Space Time Odyssey, which is a sequel to Carl Sagan's television show, Cosmos, A Personal Journey.
Correct.
From the 80s.
From 1980.
From 1980,
Yeah,
exactly, right. Welcome to London Real.
Thank you.
Thanks for being
Thank
here.
you.
You know, I took my daughter to the Greenwich Observatory a few weeks ago, and I showed her like the old Victorian telescope, like the 28-inch and 28 feet long, and we saw like the different meridians. It was like the Airy meridian and the Haley meridian.
Yeah.
All these guys had like literally drawn lines in the sand, and then the longitude clocks are there. And I was just wondering, when you land in Heathrow Airport and you think of London, do you think about that historical astronomy stuff, or do you think of completely other things?
I land in London. I don't think of Greenwich. I mean, Greenwich is another city, right, outside of
Yeah,
London.
it is. It's a few miles out.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's of course it's just across the Thames, I guess, right?
Yeah,
or something.
it's south of the river.
Yeah. So no, I don't think of that. I do revel in the fact that I'm on the Prime Meridian's time zone.
Okay.
I'm very aware of that. I like knowing that, and you know, it's the referent for all other. I don't know how many Londoners walk up and down every day thinking that. I think that it's just the time, right?
Yeah.
But I think, but in doing so, I don't necessarily think Greenwich Observatory.
Okay.
It's just once that line got set up, you won. You won that contest.
Yeah.
In London, they beat out Paris for the line.
That was the next in line.
Paris
right?
was very close.
And it was
to getting
Victorian
it.
England that was just fighting.
Yeah. So, and either city could have had it, because when you continue the line to the other side of the world, you get the international date line, and you're just in the middle of the Pacific. So, the Pacific wouldn't care.
Yeah, they weren't fighting.
where the international date line would go. So, the distance between Paris and London is not large enough to have made a difference on the other side of the world.
Right. So
because the lines would cross and be like that.
It'd be like that. What do you associate with London? When was the first time you came here?
It's basically the first international city I ever visited. I was 14.
14. Okay.
Yeah, I came alone, actually. And I was on an expedition. It was the first stop before an expedition to Stonehenge.
Okay.
And
High school
in
trip?
the Salisbury Plain. I was in high school at the time, but no, I was alone. I didn't fly with a group. The expedition part was with a group, but I came to London early to tour London. And so that was my first time here. And looking at the tube, that was interesting, because I knew the New York City subway system. Sure. So everyone talked about the tube, so I rode the tube.
Were you impressed?
I felt very, no, I wasn't impressed with it.
Not
the New York City
compared
subway is 10 times the size. Oh, there's no contest.
Is it still?
There's no contest.
But they have cushion seats on the London tube. I spent 4 years in New York City. When they had cushion on them, I was like, this would last about a day.
Well, yeah, and
in New
actually,
York.
you hardly ever get to sit, so who's noticing? No, it's the New York City subway moves 3 billion people a year. There's some crazy number of people moved every year, like billion people every year. So the sheer scale is not commensurate. But I felt very comfortable. I felt at home. I felt urban, because I'm born and raised in New York City. So, and back then it was a little grittier. You know, the cars were a little more exhausty, if there's such a word. And I think in the early 70s, England had just recently switched to a decimal monetary system.
Okay, because for the currency.
Yeah, the currency.
Okay.
And so people were talking about it, and I never knew what a shilling and pence or any of this that was. Yeah, I just never knew. So I was intrigued. I felt curiously a foreigner, yet at home.
Okay.
A big city, yet, well, people speak differently.
Yeah, a little bit. You catch up to it for a while. The black cabbies are a little tough. You know, I'm from San Diego, and I remember as a kid, probably at 10 years old, I had a single mother. We had 3 kids in the house, and I remember her walking around the house saying, billions and billions and billions of stars. She used to actually kind of get up in my face about it a little bit. And I actually hadn't seen the show, but she was fascinated by Carl and the show.
And of course, he never said billions and billions.
I read that. He said billions upon billions, right?
No, never. Well, no. He
Did he write a book about that later?
There was a book,
right?
One of his last books called Billions and Billions.
Okay.
Just to sort of just get it out there. And
so this is like a meme gone
Johnny
wrong.
Carson said billions and billions while imitating Carl Sagan.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did Carl?
Johnny Carson, two hosts ago
of
of the New York America's Tonight Show.
Yeah, I remember him. It dates us a bit.
Yeah.
So how did Carl transcend science so much at the time? Because there was no social media back then. There was no Twitter. It had to be him as a person and the production value of the show.
Yeah. So I think what I learned from Cosmos, because I was already established as in my career path to become an astrophysicist. So his science expositions didn't influence me to become a scientist. What they did influence, it was kind of like an existence proof for me that it is possible for a scientist to have a bedside manner, a fireside, wow, I can just put him here. And when he's on the TV, he's actually like on the couch next to me, talking to me. He's not lecturing, he's not pontificating, he's just having a conversation. And he's speaking with a sort of poetic grace that you had never heard before out of the vocabulary of a scientist of any kind. And there's scientists who could find some interesting elements of their profession and share them with you, and then you'd sort of meet them halfway because it was interesting. With Carl Sagan, he took steps beyond that, in which he would find something interesting and then show why it mattered to you, or why it should matter to you, why you should care, take it to heart. So science became not only an intellectual exercise, but an emotional one. And realizing that that was possible told me that if I'm ever in a position to bring science to the public, that's how I'm going to that's what I'm going to attempt to do. And it requires some socialization, right? You got to know who you're talking to and why and what they're thinking. And that doesn't normally go on in a professor's lecture hall. The professor's under no obligation to care what's going on in your head while that lecture is being given. It's your responsibility to learn the material. You're paying for this privilege to learn. But in the real world, on television, in books, there's a different kind of contract with the consumer of that product. And to be successful, that contract has to fully embrace who and what the consumer of that product is. The reader, the viewer, the listener.
Did you change your style after watching Cosmos?
I didn't really have a style. I was just
style.
entering graduate school.
Okay.
My first year of graduate school was 1980.
Okay.
So, no, I'd given some talks and things, but looking at his way, I said, yeah, if I need that, that's what I'm going to reach for. Oh, yeah.
And so on that same note, how do you transcend science? I mean, I'm guessing you didn't create the person that you are. You didn't say, I want to be this guy at this point in my life.
No. Yeah, no, it's just, so...
I mean, you're a kid from the Bronx.
Yeah, the Bronx. so I just am, okay? If I had my way, I would just stay home, okay? I would just stay home. But what happens is but I happen to live in New York City, and the universe flinches, and the press, the media, they call me up, and they send the action camera truck, or I taxi in, right? And I comment on the explosion in the sun, the asteroid that was just discovered, the new planet that was found, the next mission to Pluto, whatever, and then I go home. I would say 15%, no more, of all the occasions I'm on the telly, it's because, 15% is because I wrote a book, and so the marketing people got me on a show, right? So you expect that. That's how that whole system works. All the other times I'm on television, it's because I was called by the gatekeepers of the news who judged that something happened in the universe was interesting enough to talk about. So when being called to do that, I say to myself, well, I'd like to do as good a job as I can. They ask me a question, and I look at their eyes, their eyebrows. Are they responding? Who is their audience? And so I think about it. I say, well, what responses would resonate with this interviewer or that audience at this time of day? And what references, what analogies would best serve this topic? And that's what comes out in the interview. And then I did that, and I found that they kept coming back. So this visibility rises, not because I had any such objectives at all, but because I'm happy to report that there's an appetite for the cosmos out there. And the gatekeepers of news wouldn't put it on the news unless they judged that their audience was going to enjoy the news story. And I remember in the early days that I'd get called in, it would be in our morning news programs, they're usually multiple hours. And if you're in the second hour versus the third hour, the news gets softer and softer. And the celebrity interviews and the recipes and the cooking demonstrations are in the third hour. So in the early days, the cosmic interviews, I found they were in the third hour. So they were viewing it as sort of public interest, but not news. And then it sort of moved into the second hour. Now it's in the first hour. Every time I appear in the morning news, it's in the first half hour. They're judging what NASA does, what happens in the universe, all of these phenomena as news that is deserving of the first hour's priorities.
Is that because people care more now, or do you think
I can only judge that people care more about it.
Or is it because of you?
I don't know. It could be a little of both, that I'm enabling them to foster the audience they know is going to then watch it for that reason, perhaps. But my simple point is I'm serving a public appetite. That's what I'm doing, and I'm happy to do it. It's a privilege to be, and it's an awesome responsibility, all right, to do it, to get it right, as a servant. That's a responsibility. But if I had my way, I would just stay home. And so
I find that hard to believe.
Now, what I do that's active is I write books. So I've written 10 books. 3 were co-authored of that. And but I'm home writing. That's why when I write a book, I'm at home writing. I'm not on TV writing. I'm at home. Also, I feed a Twitter account. And I don't know if you're going to get to that, but I have tweet-worthy thoughts all the time.
You're known for a guy that can put your thoughts into 140 characters.
Well, no, it's not that I can put them in 140 characters. Is that before Twitter, I had 140 character thoughts all the time. All right, except I just shared them with myself. Okay, I would just observe the world, and I'd have a thought.
You said there was something. Nothing as brilliant as a haiku. You've said.
Well,
before.
no. So a tweet is essential if it's written in a way that's informative, but can still fit. It's kind of like a haiku. It's like all the fat is trimmed, and it's the essence of an idea laid to a sequence of words. And so there's some. I don't intentionally compose haikus, but when I read haikus, I think of some tweets that I had composed. There's some correspondence there. So I'm just saying I have those thoughts all the time. Random thoughts. That's why people say, "Oh, can you tell me about dark matter?" They tweet back, "Dark matter, dark energy, the moon." I say, "No, this is not a Q&A service. You're just eavesdropping on my random brain thoughts every day."
Okay. So
that's why they go. That's why they're everywhere. There's no rhyme or reason to them.
To your Twitter feed.
Yeah, there's sports, there's
random.
culture, there's because that's what I'm thinking at the moment.
So it's the perfect social media for you.
Yeah. And I rarely tweet where I am because that's not. I don't.
I noticed you hadn't mentioned London in your feed, so you get stalkers. So
no. It's yeah. I just don't. I don't presume that someone is interested, whether or not they are, in what I'm doing from minute to minute in a day. If that's what I reported, I'm not being an educator. I'm being that's cultism.
Okay.
Right. So.
You make sure you use it for a certain purpose.
Yeah, I'm an educator and a scientist, so let my tweets be that. So there was one, I did tweet my location. May I share this? You have
Yes.
the time for this. I was in the Charlotte, North Carolina airport. And if you go from like a real plane to one of the puddle jumping planes in that airport, I swear it's 1 or 2 miles in the airport. I swear. Whether or not it is that, it feels that way. So there I am walking, and then you get to the motor walkway, so you do that. But then there's still walking, and you're still walking, and you're still walking. I had to tweet something about it. I said, I can't wait till we harness wormholes so that any two gates in an airport can just be adjacent to one another. Okay? And I thought I was being clever, you know. It's like, here, look at my tweet. And someone tweeted back, if we harness the power of wormholes, we wouldn't need airports. It was like, okay, you got me there.
Yes.
So that was a case where I'm making an observation about an event in my life, and it triggered some clever replies, cleverer than even my tweet itself.
Does a lot of your fan base come from Twitter?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I wake up every morning astonished that forget the I. I wake up every morning astonished that an astrophysicist can have 1.7 million Twitter followers. That's what? No. What? Did I remind you that I'm an astrophysicist? Did you forget this? Did you? I am as surprised. I'm astonished. I'm surprised and astonished. I'm delighted that like I said, that the appetite is out there. But I'm just, like I said, sharing my thoughts.
Okay.
And that number is growing. It's been growing steadily. And I think it bodes well for the future of science literacy that people have that kind of
That people are this interested.
curiosity. Right.
Yeah.
But I don't, like I said, it's not a mission statement to grow the number. It's not a mission statement to be visible. It's not, for me, it's not. In fact, after Cosmos airs, I just want to go to the Bahamas.
I think it's really hard to fake a genuine persona, someone who's genuinely inspired and interested in what they do these days when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to social media, when it comes to you being in the media so much. And that if people don't feel your genuine interest and passion for it, then, you know, you can't sell them something 30 minutes.
Well, exactly. No, you make an important point. You're right. I'm not selling anything, not even the universe, figuratively or literally. You are eavesdropping on my enthusiasm for my own work.
Right.
That's really what's happening here.
Right.
And I'm happy to bring you along. But the minute I am not effective, or the minute people start wailing or complain, I'll just go home. I don't, like I said.
Well, I think it was Carl Sagan that once said there were two reasons that scientists to explain science. One was to promote funding of science,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, their reproductive organs. And the second one, it was just the pure excitement of communicating one's own excitement about science.
Yeah, I would say that when you communicate your excitement about science, the public gets excited about the science, and then they vote in ways that stimulate funding to support the science. So I would say one leads to the other.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a jazz fan.
I like jazz, but I don't claim deep expertise. I enjoy listening to jazz. And in the genre, I would specify that my favorite is the blues.
Right, and Buddy Holly.
Well, yeah, I mean, some, not all, not the full repertoire, but I handpick. So, you know, I like it. But I wouldn't go to a jazz convention and compare who's got the vinyl first pressing of whomever. So, but I have my playlist carry me through.
Okay. Well, Miles Davis, I think, once said, you can't do what you just did. I guess it was a way of him saying that jazz was about improvisation. And okay, I'm going to take that parallel to maybe the cosmos. You're rebooting something from a long time ago. So I was wondering, why do it for you? Why do it now, of all things?
Yeah, great reference to Miles Davis there. What that implies is when you create, if it's on the spot and it's live, it's something that's never been created before, even if the notes are the same on the page.
Right, or will be created again.
Yeah, exactly, because the moment defines the creative expression. And I feel that way when I give talks, if I backdoor my way to answer your question. When I give a talk, there are people, hosts, public talk, there are hosts of that event who will say, oh, could you send your talk in advance? It's like, huh? No, the talk is the talk that I give at that time, at that moment, to that audience. There is no talk in advance. If I could send a talk in advance, I would do that and I would stay home. Again, let me get back home referencing here.
A lot of home references.
I don't need to, if that's, all right, but the talk is my interaction with your live audience. That's the talk. And so I feel the same way that Miles Davis felt when he spoke those words. So Cosmos is the continuation, not a reboot. That showed up in an early press release, but it's not a reboot. It's a continuation of that journey. And this one is Cosmos as Space Time Odyssey, and I'm hosting it. When I had the opportunity to do so, again, I was just at home. And I thought to myself, all right, I met Carl Sagan when I was 17. He invited me to his office at Cornell University.
So you were already going to Cornell to tour it, and then they knew you liked Carl, and they put you two together?
No, it was deeper than that. It was, I was accepted at Cornell, still a senior in high school, and unknown to me, the admissions office forwarded my application, which was dripping with the universe, because I knew what I wanted to study, forwarded that application to Carl Sagan. He then, on his own initiative, sent me a letter. Neil Tyson from Carl Sagan said, is this like the Carl Sagan? He was already famous. He hadn't done Cosmos yet, but he was already famous. And I said, why does he write me a letter? I opened it up. He said, I understand you're considering Cornell. If you'd like to come by and visit, I'd be happy to show you around to help you decide whether this is where you want to go. It's like, whoa, who am I? So I went up there. He met me on a Saturday outside the lab, and we went up and we toured the facility, talked about the universe, talked about the Viking mission that was being imagined at the time. And this is the Viking craft that did a tour of the planets and now made the news a few months ago for exiting the solar system.
Is it the furthest piece of man-made material?
Farthest piece of human touch thing ever. So that touched me. And one of my favorite, I'm in his office and he reaches back, doesn't even look, reaches back, pulls out one of the books that he wrote, and then he signs it to me.
What, from the library, from his desk?
I know, I just thought that was so class. He didn't even have to look. Any book back there I wrote, all right? So I said, if I'm ever as influential or as well known as he is, it benchmarked me for how I would interact with students for the future. I said, if I'm ever remotely what he is, that's how I'm going to treat students.
Do you think you wouldn't have done this series now if you hadn't have met him?
I think if I hadn't done the series, there'd be less of a case for me to be host. There are other people, there are scientists in the public eye right now, I'm happy to report. And I met Brian, my last time I was in London, I met Brian Cox, who's all the rage here in the
big.
UK.
1.2 million followers, so it's close.
Oh,
You're ahead of him.
Okay. Yeah, it's the Twitter peeing contest, right? Yeah. Who's the...
That's a dangerous game.
I think it's simply that the United States has a bigger population than the UK, perhaps. That's always the case. I mean, why did the Beatles come to America? It's a bigger marketplace. And in fact, this is the anniversary year of the Beatles landing at JFK.
50 years ago.
Yeah, in fact, it wasn't called JFK yet. Did they call the airport that yet?
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because he died in '63, right?
Yes, Idlewild. Yeah. But anyhow, so there are other people who might have hosted, perhaps Brian Cox. I mean, he's very likable as host. We call them presenters here. Very likable as presenter of science content. And can I express my bias? I think he's most likable when he's talking about the universe. He's a physicist, right? Because the universe just has likable things in it. So you combine that with his personality. It's very, so his popularity is well-deserved and fully understandable. But there are others in the United States as well who might have hosted, perhaps. But having met him at age 17, having become an astrophysicist, having had a rising profile with the public, having thought much about what Carl did to communicate, at the point that I offered myself, I realized that if I did not do Cosmos, it would be irresponsible of me to decline it. Because I knew I could do it and do it in a way that I felt the passion for that role. And Andrian, who is one of the original 3 creative principles in the original Cosmos, and Carl Sagan's longtime collaborator and now widow, she's the writer of record for this. She's the principal writer and executive producer of this cosmos. So she feels the universe. I mean, I can tell you about what's out there, but she'll connect that with your heart, with your soul, and that's cosmos. That's what makes cosmos.
What can we expect from this series?
Well, it's 13 episodes. I mean, it was like
the hard work.
Oh my gosh! Let's not even go there. Okay, let's not even go there. I got to give a look at every camera here. How many cameras you got?
A lot.
There's only 2 of us at this. You got more cameras here than we shot Cosmos with. But we're going to miss some. Is there some move I'm going to do? No, we got the wrong angle.
Where did you shoot it? Was it green screens? Was it in New York?
There's a lot of green screen because you can't actually visit the sun, right? So at some point you got to put the stuff on green screen.
And Carl had a lot of tech for him back in the day.
Back in the day.
That was cutting edge.
Back in the day, it was cutting edge, and
they shot on film and on videotape.
Yeah, but we didn't. They didn't have, of course, the VFX, the visual effects that now derive from what people do on a computer, as distinct from the special effects, which are models and that you would film in a particular way to make them look real, and which might even include green screen projection of some place you might be standing, grafted with some prop that's in the foreground. So there are ways to do it. So, and the universe has a lot of visitable places that you can't actually visit. I mean, that would be stunning to visit that you can't go. A black hole, a galaxy, an ascent to the edge of the universe. And cosmos is not only just the universe, even though the word implies that. The cosmos is anything where it's a frontier of human knowledge of how the world works. So we descend into a dewdrop. We spent 9 or 10 minutes just hanging out in a dewdrop, talking about the cosmos within the drop. And so there's a seamless movement, crossing the boundaries of biology, chemistry, physics, geology, astrophysics, all the frontier sciences that typically you think of as distinct entities. The universe doesn't care. It's all science to the universe. And so this exploration of the cosmos, as shared with you through this vessel we call cosmos, it's an exposure, not only to what we know about the universe, but why it matters. And I was happy and privileged to be a part of that project.
Were you happy with it?
Oh, you asked where we filmed.
Yeah,
so there's a lot on green screen, as you would suspect, but there's a lot of on-location work as well, because there are stories we tell of people who mattered in the history of science, and you might not have heard about them. And so, Michael Faraday, for example, he's well known to physicists, but he's much less known to the public. Without him, I mean, he basically birthed modern understanding of electromagnetism, and his inventions are how today we still produce electricity. And he was at work in the middle 19th century, and he was a Brit. So that's when I was in London, and we filmed it in a place where he hung out, where his papers are kept. That's the Royal Institution. So there's some historical props we're giving to people, not physical props, but giving proper recognition to people who have come before us, who have struggled, who discovered some truth, who had either personal struggles. Faraday had very modest beginnings. Personal struggles or struggles upon arriving at a truth, bringing it to the world around them, only to confront a level of resistive dogma that basically made them martyrs in the history of science, because their ideas were suppressed. In some cases, they lost their lives. We profiled Giordano Bruno, who you don't hear of because right after him came Galileo, like practically minutes after him, Galileo's on the scene. And we learn about his conflicts with the church, not Bruno's conflicts with the church. Bruno looked up at night and said, I see all these stars, that's kind of cool. I wonder if those stars are like our sun, just like really far away. If that's the case, maybe they have planets like our sun has. Because Copernicus said, we're not in the center, the sun is. And if we're not in the center, and we're one of multiple planets, that means there could be other places for life. That means there could be life out there in the universe. Well, that was a heretical idea. It would mean Earth was not the object of creation. it would mean God was looking elsewhere as well to put life. This was just completely heretical to the Catholic Church at the time. He refused to recant, and the Inquisition handled that case and handed him over to the Roman authorities and had him burned at the stake. Some centuries later, there would finally be a statue honoring him I think the Campo di Fiori in Rome. And there's a rather sad statue. He's there, hooded, monk, with a monk garb, and a tribute to his first idea that maybe the universe is bigger than we thought. We tell his story. So mixed in with all the places we go, that I take you as your personal guide, there's stories we tell that I narrate. And in those stories, the characters that are represented, it's a kind of a graphic novel style animation of these historical retellings. And so we actually got marquee voice talent to be these characters.
You have some voice talent yourself.
Oh, me?
Yes.
Oh, I don't hear my voice.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. You know, the answering machine. You ever do that test? I don't know who that is. That's not me. I think your voice sounds much more resonant in your own cranial cavity than detached from it. So I don't think about it. But thank you for that. Richard Gere is one of the voices, okay. and Sir Patrick Stewart is one of them, and even Seth MacFarlane is one of the voices.
Excellent.
And it's not Stewie, no.
And are you?
No, he does a great job. I mean, everyone cared about this project. They knew it was something bigger than themselves. That we have an important mission here, and that's to raise the science literacy of the world just a couple of notches above where it is. Because there's so much out there. There's so many forces that want to deny a scientific truth just because it conflicts with their ideology. They determine that they don't like science and therefore it doesn't matter to them. There are all these sort of categories of how people think about science that are not always healthy for the future of a state, the future of our species, the future of the Earth.
Do you still think science is dumbed down in the U.S. or in the world? I think that is changing.
I think dumbing down science tends to get a bad name, but if it's better to dumb down science than not get any science at all. I mean, I don't have an issue with that if that's what someone feels they need to do. But in my life, I don't think I've ever dumbed down science. And dumbing down is, okay, let me explain. I don't think, I've never been accused of dumbing down. Because in what I say, I'm telling you things that you know are real, not because I have an authority to declare it. It's real because I say, well, here's why, and that happened, and that happened. Now you understand. And when you do that, there's no dumbing down. There's an understanding that is emerging from the conversation on such a level that you then take ownership of that knowledge and that insight and that wisdom. And then I walk away, and you no longer have to reference me. It's not true because I said so. It's true because you've learned how we came to know why it's true. There's no dumbing down in that. And I would say my highest compliment that I would get is someone says, I'll give this an example. I'm amalgamating several kinds of responses, but it's something like, meet someone in the street and they'll recognize me. They'll say, and it could be like a construction worker or a sanitation person or a meter maid. They come up to me and say, thank you. For the first time in my life, I felt smart. And someone who's fully educated never really would say that because they take exams, they're professors that they had. So they already have been in the world of what it is to be thought of as smart. I'm talking about people who hard-working people in the street. And so they actually have access, and presumably through the occasions I've been on television, been interviewed, and the like, and they'll surely have access now that Cosmos airs. And to say that you feel smart, that doesn't happen if you just got lectured to. It just doesn't. If you get lectured to, it's a dump of information. You might know a couple of extra things, but you don't feel like your thinking has changed. And the feeling that you're smarter comes about when you see things differently, in a new way, in an enlightened way.
Yeah, a common mantra that I hear people say, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at science, and they kind of close their mind off to it. But when they can see something presented that way, where they actually can see the education, maybe the inspiration from you, then all of a sudden, you know, it changes your perception of yourself.
Yeah, everything. I mean, you stand up a little taller,
Yeah.
you know, and you might look up next time you walk out of a building on the possibility that the sky is clear and the universe is talking to you.
So 13
Not
episodes.
literally, but figuratively.
Figuratively.
Talking to you.
Are you, I mean, it's a lot of pressure. I mean, not only you have all these stars trying to make something better for science and to communicate it better, you also have the legacy of Carl and the original Cosmos. After 13 weeks, are you happy with everything that happened?
Yeah, I mean, I'm new to this. I mean, yes, I've been on TV, but, and I hosted a small spin-off of the PBS in America called Nova Science Now. But this was my first large sort of Hollywood scale project where they close off streets and there's, you know,
Is that fun?
and I'm being chased by the makeup person and the wardrobe person and just the whole, and I have my trailer, you know, that was, it was, I don't say it was fun, it was novel. The whole thing was novel. Everything. Okay, we're working 12 hours tomorrow, and then we're off another 12 hours, and then we're going to go to this other location, and here's your clothing, and here's your makeup, and get a rest here, and here's the food, and we want to get you the food. And wherever I am, there's someone there ready like to take the glass from my hand or to hand me something. So just the scale of operation that goes on for any movie, for me to experience that was novel from beginning to end.
Okay.
And it's not something I don't know that I want to do that more than once, because it was a huge hit to my calendar, you know, just the stability of my life was wholly disrupted by this. And so I don't see it as something, so that being said, the novelty of it kept me going. It was like, wow, this is great. Wow, that's interesting. Was that how they do the green screen? Was that what a gaffer is? Who the hell knows what a gaffer is? And now I know what a gaffer is, right? That's the lighting people. And so when the show airs, you'll see me in front of camera. But when I see me in front of camera, that's not what I'll think. I'll think, I saw the 100 people in front of me collaborating to make this project work.
Okay. Let me take you back to 17, where you first met Carl.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually 17, and I toured Cornell, because it was one of
You
the
were once
schools-
17.
Yeah. Wow. I remember flying up there. I went to Boston first, and then I went up to Ithaca, and I went there, and I looked around. And like you, I chose not to attend Cornell. Why did you go to Harvard and not go to Cornell and not go to MIT like I did?
Yeah, so I was a geek kid. I also was athletic, so I don't think I fulfilled the stereotype of the geek.
You were a wrestler.
Yeah, I used to wrestle.
Which is very different.
Yeah. So there was no football player giving me a wedgie against the locker.
So you had a presence. I mean, because I wrestled. Wrestlers have a presence of, I can double leg take you down.
Oh yeah, of course.
Even though you're not going to.
Yeah. You just know no one can exploit your.
and people feel that presence.
Yeah, no one is going to take advantage of you at all. It's just not going to happen. Okay. Right. There's no one who's going to grab you in a way that you haven't been grabbed before on a wrestling match. So this is a certain confidence that you might have. So
It's probably helped you to this day.
yeah, I think so. So what I mean by being a geek is I was a geek sympathizer, if you think of it that way, and I was card carrying at the time. I'm old enough to have been formally trained in the use of a slide rule. And at the time, in my high school, I carried a slide rule. And I went to a geeky high school, the Bronx High School of Science. Okay. And so this is before you carried around before you carried around your cell phones, your smartphones and your cell phones, and before you carried around the Sony Walkman, you would carry around a calculator. And before the calculator, there was the slide rule. Right. And
my dad used to have one.
And the bigger your slide rule, the more precise the calculation was you could make. And so in the Bronx High School of Science, we had a full range of personality profiles that you'd find at any high school. It was just all shifted to the geek side of the spectrum. So we had bullies, but they were geek bullies.
What does a geek bully do to you?
Geek bully, they'll calculate how they...
Makes you tell in the periodic table?
Yeah, exactly. So I was a geek sympathizer, and I was I thought of myself, because I could wrestle, as sort of a defender of geeks. And but now I forgot the question you were asking. Why Harvard? So at that time, I really thought about the world and my life and my ambitions. And it's funny, just as we speak, there's a profile on me that is appearing in the New Yorker magazine, like this minute.
Okay.
It just hit the stands. And I told the interviewer that there was no teacher in any time in my life, from kindergarten through 12th grade and beyond, who ever would have said, he'll go far, pointing to me. None of them ever thought that. None of them ever said it. I did not have that kind of relationship with my teachers. I mean, my grades didn't stand out in some way that would make them notice. But I knew since age 9 I wanted to be an astrophysicist. I knew. And I was doing things leading into that direction. From what I read, I had a telescope. So my saying that teachers never said that I would go far. There's a sentence in that profile that says, Neil Tyson was a mediocre student. If I tell you that there's a mediocre student there, what I was is not the image that would come into your head. You'd have a different image of that student. A student who doesn't want to learn, who just could care less. No, I was learning daily. Whether or not it was happening in the classroom. So it's interesting how people, there's the urge to say, well, Einstein failed math, when they want to say something that's no, I was a committed student. Whether or not my grades revealed it to a teacher who uses grades to judge whether you're going to be something when you grow up is another matter.
Is that a lesson that people should
I
learn?
think so. Don't get me started. That's another thing. Call me back.
I could see it started.
Just hold me back. Right. So in high school, I'd subscribed to many magazines, including Scientific American. And my favorite part of that magazine was a section called About the Authors. And reliably, it would record for the authors of these articles on the frontier of science where they were an undergraduate, where they got their master's, where they got the PhD, and on whose faculty they serve at the moment. I made a list of the schools I was accepted to, and then put a check in the box of which of these schools these authors of all the physics and astronomy articles that appeared in the magazine. I made a checklist of where all of them had gotten their bachelor's, master's, PhDs, and where they're on faculty. And Harvard's list blew away the rest of the schools.
Okay.
And I said to myself, if being asked to write for Scientific American is an indicator of the potency of the education at such a location, or just how productive the research facilities are, then there's no other option here but to go to Harvard. And it had nothing to do with Harvard or the legacy of Harvard. I didn't even care. If that had been Tougaloo State University, if it had a list that long, that's where I would have been, and Harvard would have been in my rearview mirror.
Okay.
So I didn't want to go to Cornell only because one man invited me with the possible opportunity of working with him. Because I knew enough to know that you can end up switching schools. Faculty are not at an institution forever. Many are, but occasionally you might switch institutions. Carl Sagan, just before he was at Cornell, was at Harvard. So not everybody's always in the same place at all times. For me to commit 4 years of my life irreversibly because of one individual was not sufficient reason for me to attend Cornell.
Understood. We always ask everyone the same question on London Real, and I'm going to give it to you. If you could make a phone call to the 20-year-old Neil deGrasse Tyson and give that young man a bit of advice, what would you tell him?
Yeah, I'm going to give you a cop-out answer.
Okay.
I'm going to say I wouldn't give any advice at all, because the act of being 20 is itself part of what it is to become who you are. If you start siphoning information from the future the act of having learned it firsthand by experiencing it is what made me the person who would put me in a position to call the 20-year-old and say, here's the advice. So I don't mean to get tautological on you, but the act of learning by life experience has sufficient value that to just have someone tell you what you should or shouldn't do is not what makes you who and what you are. Who and what you are is what you do and what you learn from what you did. Yeah, you can tell somebody something, but if they don't think it's true, it'll fall on deaf ears. Let them find out. And the act of finding out is the lesson, not the lesson itself. So there is nothing I can tell myself at any time in life because I am learning what it is to be alive. I'm learning what it is to become a scientist. I'm learning what it is when people treat me one way or another because they presume I should be an athlete rather than a scientist. That's life experience that feeds what I am today. Even if I'm steeped in ignorance at some point in my life, and then that gets figured out because I visit someplace or I read a book, that's life experience. And you can't just tell someone that. You know what it reminds me of? The immigrant who comes to America. And this is an oft retold kind of story. They come to America with not a penny to their name. And they work hard and they start a business and they finally get actually wealthy. Right? Not an uncommon story in America. And they struggled and they knew the meaning of a dollar and so then they have a family. And they say to themselves, I will never have my kids experience the poverty that I had, or the hunger, or not knowing where the next meal. That will not happen with my kids. So the kids have everything provided for them. And then they become deadbeats. And then then the parent says, where did I go wrong? I gave you everything I didn't have. It's the fact that you started with nothing gave you the work ethic to become who you are. So to turn around and say, now I'm going to change all that for my kids? Of course, you don't want your kids to go hungry so that they become somebody like you. But just don't presume that your latter-day knowledge, your latter-day wealth, if introduced into a next generation as advice or as a handout, will create the person that you are. In fact, it can circumvent it. It can derail that pathway.
Warren Buffett's not giving any of his money to his kids. I think for that particular purpose, he's given them like enough to live.
Yeah. Just now
No
get
billions.
the rest of it. Yeah.
Neil, thanks so much for your time. Love your podcast, by the way, Star Talk.
Oh, Star Talk Radio. Thank you.
You've got the Giza on there. I would love an intro. You've got all sorts of great people. It's fun.
Yeah. We try to pull people hewn from pop culture, and then I have a conversation with them about science. So the goal is they'll bring their fan base to hear it's their person, right? They'll bring their fan base to a show where science is the topic. People who might not have otherwise had the occasion to listen to a conversation about the universe or anything else.
Perfect. And on Twitter, how do they follow you?
At Neil Tyson. Yeah,
Neil Tyson.
Thanks for that. Yeah, so I tweet, like I said, people want to ask me encyclopedic questions. I want to say, well, there's Wiki, just go to Wiki. But really, I'm not there for that medium. I'm not a servant of your questions. You are a passive eavesdropper on my brain droppings. But I write books and things that I have in these various media. You can get questions, answers. In fact, we have a version of Star Talk, which is just we call Cosmic Queries. We solicit questions from the fan base of the show,
right.
And I sit there with a comedian. We have a fun time. The comedian reads the question, and I never heard the question before, and we answer it. So I have ways that I do address the cosmic curiosity that lies within us all.
Yeah, I like that part of your show. Wishing you all the best with Cosmos. Can't wait to watch it. And it's just a fantastic story.
It's opening in 171 countries in 45 languages.
That's crazy.
As well as the United States in English. Yeah. So
fantastic. Well, as we say at London Real, it's about the journey. Wish you well on yours, and all the best.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. And which camera do I say thank you to?
All of them.
Okay.
That one.
All right.
Cool. We're done. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This week on London Real, we have mixed martial arts trainer of the year, Mike Dolce.
Dolce diet is a lifestyle-based approach to maximizing health, fitness, and longevity. It's returning to the basics. What has got our species to where we are today? If you don't know what it is, if you can't pronounce it, if it's some chemical term or name, get it out of there. There's no easy way, there's no easy path. I mean, life is about sacrifice and it's about reward. No pills, no powders, no potions.
Is it true you actually cut weight with them?
Absolutely.
Mike, that's crazy.
I'm not a fitness personality. I'm not a celebrity trainer. I'm not a TV dude. I'm not a spiky haired, look at my abs, fake tan kind of guy. We're teaching people how to be healthier, how to be better, how to change their body dramatically, but how to live these long, healthy existences. I still see myself as a white belt in the game. There's so much more for me to learn and continue to do.
On Sunday, London Real presents Mike Dolce, Living Lean.
I believe that I have the information, the experience to help every person on this planet in some way, shape, or form to achieve their goal.